All right, we're back with the final Observe This of 1984, the Vince McMahon expansion, Starrcade 84. Dude, we have some hilarious comedy Dave bits, including, and I'll preview this one, including some Kerry Von Erich testing for Rocky IV.
Yeah, that'll be around the time.
It's around the time. So obviously Draven is here with me. We've been doing this all year. It's been fun to dig back into the book. You know, I have this book on Kindle as I'm reading it. And as I'm getting close, I know it's December in the years, and I'm looking at the little Amazon Kindle gimmick where it shows you the percentage of the book that you've been through.
I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna. So I don't know what you're talking about. I'm old school and I read books.
Yeah, but it basically gives you an idea of how far through the book you are. So I'm like, we're in December. I think this is the last issue of the year. How come I'm only at 85% of this whole book? And then what I forgot is that Dave published a yearbook essentially at the beginning of the next year. So what they do in these Observer books is they put the yearbook for 84 at the end. So the yearbook is like 1,000 pages long, but it was kind of fun to dig through as well. So, all right. So we're sitting here. It's Vince McMahon's world and Dave Meltzer.
Let me say this before you keep going. I wanted to just make sure that I mentioned that it's actually been 2 years that we've been doing this. 2 years strong. We haven't missed a month, and that's more for me than you, because I have a hard time keeping up with these things sometimes, and I tend to jump off. But so yeah, it's a big deal to me that we've been doing this now for 2 years. Covered 89, 84. I don't know what we're gonna do next year, but we'll figure it out.
No, and you know, I was gonna save this for the end, but since you mentioned it, no, I wanted to thank you for doing this, because like we're doing it more so because we have a good time than because we're any other reason, really.
Right. Yeah.
We just like chit-chatting with each other. And yeah, you know, we are both really busy in our day-to-day, and even this holiday, you've been in high demand for movie podcasts, and you've been hustling doing that stuff. So to find time on New Year's Eve in the morning, I appreciate that. So I'm excited though, because like you said, like to have this idea of a project and to actually get to the finish line is actually pretty cool. So
yeah. So
all right, cool. Let's chit chat about what's going on. And you know, I have access, of course, to current Dave, and it is funny in hindsight, because asking current Dave about 40 years ago, Dave, is pretty wild. 41 years ago, actually. And so I asked him, I said, you know, I'm reading this 84 Observer book, and you are so angry at the current wrestling business because you're seeing that Vince is taking over, and a lot of the stuff that you really enjoy, which is following the different territories and doing all the tape trading and the different styles of wrestling, you're kind of coming to the realization that even though you knew that cable TV was going to change the business, you're coming to the realization that Vince McMahon is going to probably be in your life for the rest of your life. And as I said that to him while we were watching the AEW pay-per-view, I had my own aha moment, which is Dave outlasted Vince in the wrestling business. Like, that's kind of crazy if you think about it.
It is crazy. Yeah. I mean, it's a little simplistic, but I hear you.
Well, as you know, as I'm talking to him, I'm saying, you know, you're coming to this realization. He's going to be the top guy for as long as you're covering this. You can understand this. And he said, well, I did think that Crockett was going to survive, and I did think that Watts was going to survive all the way up until Watts sold. So my faith was in, I like those styles better. Thus, you know, I'll be okay, because even though I'll be covering WWE, I'll still get to watch NWA and Mid-South, and I'll be okay. Like, you know, I have to cover the business, but at least from a entertainment perspective. And then I'm just like, And then, yeah, like you're not covering Vince anymore. And I've talked to him about this. We're still kind of covering Vince because Vince is popping into all these lawsuits and the shareholders and Ari Emanuel and Mark Shapiro and Nikki Khan are in the news for maybe for the wrong reasons. But Vince is just like this prevailing story that just is everlasting. And I don't know. Do you think we're going to hear more of Vince in 2026? Like, is he going to be able to get all of these lawsuits? We have the Ring Boys lawsuit, we have the shareholders lawsuit, and then this Janelle Grant thing. I feel like the amount of people that care so much about the Janelle Grant thing is lessening, which is actually pretty unfortunate and frustrating. But do you think he gets these things behind him and can actually come back into wrestling, or is that done? Are we done with Vince McMahon?
No, I think he's going to be around. I think his circle, right? His circle, his connections, including the president of the United States of America, are too powerful. So, I mean, even now, what's the point of these lawsuits other than just like, you know, they're just civil lawsuits at this point. He's never going to go to jail, not in the next 3 years anyway. And so I think he's going to come out of this, which is unfortunate, but that's the world. The world's not fair, and it's just always been that way. And I also feel that he's going to get involved again, just because he's got. Look at Triple H. I mean, little by little, they're just not caring. Like they don't care, you know, what anybody thinks. They're going to rub elbows with the people they're going to rub elbows with. So I feel Vince is going to come back. If not with the WWE under the umbrella of TKO somewhere, you know, he's going to be the promoter of the bull riding thing they have or the boxing. He'll be back. And Dave ain't through with Vince yet. You know, it's just these people are like cockroaches. They just never go away.
Yeah, totally.
And then, like you said, unfortunately, as time goes on, right, as the new generation, and we also got to think about this guy's gonna live around. This is gonna be around forever because his mom lived to be like 100. So he's gonna be around forever. As time goes on, we're gonna forget about it. Look at what happened with Brock Lesnar. I was very disappointed with the whole Brock Lesnar thing. Just, you know, once you're there live, you're a cartoon character, right? When you're on Raw, when you're on a pay-per-view, whatever, you're a cartoon character. It doesn't count what you do. So unless you're Hulk Hogan, which for whatever reason with Hulk Hogan, they did let him have it, which is weird to me. So he's going to come back. That's my prediction for 2026 and beyond. He's going to come back for sure.
All right, so let's dig in. And it was kind of interesting to find a starting point, but I decided to start with Dave. He had written a bit of an editorial about his dissatisfaction with where the wrestling business was going, almost to the point of where it sounded like he may quit the Observer. Now, I've talked to him about this, and there was also other stuff going on in his life, like his real career and people telling him that wrestling is not a real career and you need to work in sports. You're good enough to work in sports. And so he writes this. He says, having read my previous editorial, I should make everyone aware of my current burned out state on pro wrestling. He says that he's committed to printing up the yearbook and one more issue after that. After that time, I will continue to do a wrestling publication because reader interest continues to pick up. However, since I've already, for the most part, quit watching WWF, AWA, Southwest, and others, I don't feel that I'm qualified to cover them in the manner which readers of The Observer are accustomed to. He says he's going to keep trading tapes. He's going to stay on top of his favorite promotions that keep his interest, and The Observer will mainly be devoted to those areas. So this is a fascinating quote because I think it took him one issue in February to kind of go back on that word, because I read ahead in 1985. And the opening story in his February of 1985 issue is on the Cyndi Lauper, Rowdy Roddy Piper angle, because I think Vince McMahon gets them on Good Morning America to promote that. And so he's already talking about them in February. So whatever situation this was at the end of the year in 84, it is looking that like it's already changed in 85. But maybe he did like stop watching tapes and stuff for a little while, but he still had to cover it because WWF is just kind of ready to explode in 1985.
Yeah, and he's just pouting. I mean, once social media became a thing, everybody pouts on social media. Now he didn't have that. His forum was the newsletter. So how many people have we seen have a meltdown and then they log off social media for like a week and then they come back? It's like, so all he's doing is pouting. He's frustrated. His favorite product is going away, while one of his least favorite products is kind of becoming the thing nationally. So yeah, he's just upset, and I think at this point he's not even 30 yet. So he still has that kind of like little kid kind of complaining kind of thing, which we all do at some point. Some of us still when we're older. So yeah, and then he comes back. I mean, it happens, and maybe he was also just burned out because he's doing different things. Because we forget this wasn't his only source of income. He's also doing other things to make a living at this point. And at that time in history, we don't have the terms like burnout. We haven't connected the mental health aspect to just needing some self-care, right, and some time off. So he just doesn't really know how to communicate that, and he does it like how everybody was doing it at that time, just pouting and just kind of venting, so, for relief. So that's all it was. That's how I read it.
And if you want to compare it to today, I've seen a lot of people who are hardcore WWE fans and who were all, the bloodline was cinema. Cody Rhodes finishing his story was the greatest thing I've ever seen. And then you fast forward to 2025 and they weren't as locked in. And that is part of the burnout. Now, WWE is not going to be hitting on all cylinders all the time. If we look back in time, and because we complained about 2025 a fair amount when it came to their creative, but if we had 2025 in the mid 2000s or the 2010s, we would have been happy because WWE by comparison 15 years ago was so bad compared to 2025. And so it's some of that is you need to put it in perspective. And if you didn't get your fill with WWE, you have this other company that may or may not be your cup of tea. So there are options, or there's stuff like what we do. We just talk about the old stuff. You can, if you decided that your wrestling content in 2025 or 2026 was simply going to be watching old tapes, you have so much to choose from. You never have to watch new product. And in 1984, what would Dave have been watching? He can't be watching like 1968 Buddy Rogers or something.
They taped over those tapes, which is a tragedy. Speaking of which, rest in peace, WWE Network and the archives, because they go down today. So that's kind of a big deal to me. Thankfully, the WWE Vault on YouTube is amazing. They put a lot of stuff up there for anybody that needs their fix of old stuff. Go to WWE Vault on YouTube and just enjoy that, because I don't know when the archives are going to come back, if ever. I definitely hope Netflix doesn't pick it up, because they're not going to do anything with them, as we saw.
Yeah, they're going to pick and choose.
Yeah, thankfully, I have my own vast library that I collected over the last 30 years myself on DVD. But I hadn't whipped those out in years, man. I didn't have to. Now I have to go and whip them out if I'm going to cover an old show. Yes, it's sad that's going away. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We're going to go from here.
What you just said about the archives. So as we are recording, this is the last day that WWE has or that WWE's on Peacock, at least the archives. And so I've been watching Starrcade 84 through Peacock, and I turned it on because I needed to finish like the last bit of it. It was already gone. The only Starrcade left when I turned it on this morning on Peacock was, of all ones, Starrcade 96 with Hogan and Piper. That was the only one that was up. So I didn't even get to finish Starrcade 84. Not that I haven't watched it before, but I kind of wanted to watch Steamboat and Tully, because that was like literally the only good match on the whole show. But
yeah, trust me, I saw the whole thing. So yeah, you're right.
We'll talk about Starrcade 84 at the end of this, but yeah, like this idea of archives, I think WWE should finally take their archive seriously, because there's an opportunity. And let me lean into your YouTube idea. Now, look, if ESPN wants to pay them $200 million a year for this, to keep this archive, like, take it. It's free money. We know that getting people to watch archives is actually really hard. They do it for research purposes like us, or if they're not happy with the current product. But YouTube is going to go bonkers pretty soon. Something near and dear to your heart. They acquired the rights to the Oscars in a few years. Like, that's a pretty big deal, right?
Yeah.
For YouTube, which people hadn't really taken seriously, and still don't to some extent, but it is the most used video service in the world. It's bigger than Netflix as far as, overall usage. So if I was WWE, I would blow up these archive channels, and I might even offer some subscription prices to take off ads. Like, I would actually pay for it if, and maybe you can do that through YouTube itself and or whatever, to take the ads off, and maybe it's not that big of a deal. But I would offer the currently continue doing the vault the way that they're doing, but I would actually create social around it so that people know what's coming up, because you have all these guys today. Think about who all their main eventers are. All these dudes are over 40 and who have so much content already in the WWE library. You could create so many opportunities, not only to show the old stuff, but to kind of promote the new stuff at the same time. So we've always had these grandiose ideas about what WWE could do with their archive, but I would really utilize YouTube to its fullest, because I think more people today and in the future are just going to be way more dialed into YouTube as you and I get older. So that would be my my idea for them. But all right, let's get back to this. So there's an interesting story that I never heard, and I think this is a little bit of innuendo, but Dave wanted to print it as well. So I think this is the December timeframe, and he said, now this is in hindsight because it didn't happen. He wrote that there was an incredible amount of talk prior to the last Madison Square Garden show that Hulk Hogan would lose the title to Big John Studd via countout, but it didn't materialize. He says, rumors say Hulk will lose it before the end of the year and go to Hollywood. But since he didn't lose it to Studd, Dave probably thinks it's not going to happen. There's a TV series. Now, I want to know if you've seen this or heard of this, called Goldie and the Bears.
No.
Dave writes, if Hulk's TV series, Goldie and the Bears, is picked up by ABC TV, he'd already have to be in production. So the idea is not that Hulk is just...
No, you know what? It sounds like he shot a pilot and then it didn't get picked up, because, people shoot pilots all the time. So that's what it seems like. Because Dave's talking about how the pilot's already been shot, because he says if they pick it up, then he's going to have to go in production. So, but back then, I'm trying to think. That sounds very Vince Russo-ish, the way they wanted to get the belt off of him. And back then, I don't think we had any kind of fuck finish like that just yet. Obviously, they would become the norm in the Attitude Era, but back then we didn't have that whole wacky losing the title by countout or any of that stuff. They were still even that territory, which was very much not as traditional as the other ones. They still protected the title, right? And that you had to do it with pinfall and all that stuff. So that's weird that it would happen in '84 like that, where he would just lose it by countout.
So I looked up Goldie and the Bear. They actually did turn it into a TV movie. Hulk Hogan is fourth from the top. He plays a character called Mac McKenna. Goldie, Stephanie Pharisee, who I don't know, plays Goldie Hawkins. Julius Carey, it looks like he was probably a young man at that time. And then Ben Davidson, I think he used to play for the Raiders. He's Thomas Rhino Reiner. And so this is a whole TV pilot that I guess they just turned into a TV movie. I'm sure it was broadcast somewhere. in
You know, you know, you know, you know
1985.
what's
So
a trip about the '80s, man. I don't know if you remember this, but there used to be this stereotype that football players and wrestlers were a bunch of airheads, right? They weren't very smart. That you could hear the ocean if you put your ear next to their ear. So there was a lot of these comedies that exploited these big muscle heads as being airheads, and you would write comedies around them,
yeah.
it seemed like this is what this was about. Like it was just a bunch of airheads running around and getting into situations because they don't have a brain. And you saw a lot of TV shows like that back in the '80s. Just interesting.
I am actually going to. I found I found it on YouTube. I'm going to put the link in our chat here. 45-minute pilot. It's out there on YouTube if you want to watch Hulk Hogan in his young prime.
I thought it was about Sterling Golden, which was his thing.
Well, I guess if you are thinking about television and you see Thunder Lips, you're like, oh, this dude is actually kind of a big deal. Like I would have tried something with him too. Now
yeah, that was it. Yeah, that was '83. So he's still still very much in the consciousness of culture.
And if you think about Hogan's acting career for a second, like he was never better than he was.
No, I don't want to think about his acting career for any
second. But like if you think about, as you age, you should get better at your, what you're doing in acting. But like his first role as Thunderlips, that was the best thing he ever did.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, there's some that are that like his comedy chops weren't too bad later on, but that's because again he was being booked to be kind of like a buffoon. So, like I still get a kick of Suburban Commando. I watched like a year ago. It wasn't too bad, It's just if you know what you're getting into, But all the other Mr. Nanny wasn't that bad, but all the other ones are horrible. His WCW ones they're just unwatchable at that point.
Yeah,
when he has the flat top in those Three Ninjas movies.
Just the idea that
to wrestle with a flat top for no reason, like literally no, he just rolled up with the flat top and
well, it was so Savage could take it off and goof with him and then put it on his own head during the match.
Imagine like that Vince would never allow that. Like with no context within the wrestling universe, you just show up with different hair. It's just weird.
Oh, not only that. Not only would Vince not allow it, think about if MJF in a pay-per-view main event that you were supposed to take seriously, like took off someone's wig and put it on his own head, he would be crucified by today's audience, right? Like, oh, you're not serious enough.
Yeah, but not by Tony Khan, which is a conversation for another day.
But I remember I was this is related to a question I'm going to ask you in a few minutes, but someone reminded me. Remember when MJF was trying to get over the kangaroo kick?
Yes.
And like people were mad because they're like, "Oh, he's not taking wrestling seriously. This is stupid." Like he's making a joke out of the whole thing. So today's wrestling audience is much less forgiving about that stuff.
No, that's that wrestling audience. If it was WWE, they would have made a shirt out of it. It would have been the biggest spot in the match because remember, WWE audiences are into spots. That's their thing. That's why the WWE style is it looks the same over because they're into you build to those spots. So just if he would have gotten the kangaroo kick over in the WWE, whereas AEW is all about the work rate. So you can't do that there for sure.
All right. So the next thing I want to talk about is Pro Wrestling USA. Do you remember when you first heard about this idea of these companies, these non-WWF companies trying to get together to compete against WWF? I remember when I first read about it, I was like, why have I never heard about this? This is a wild idea. And the reason is because it doesn't actually last and it's actually looked upon as, these guys aren't going to be able to work together. So no one really brought it up since. But do you remember when you first saw or heard about it?
No, that was before my time. When I started watching in late '86, they weren't really the thing anymore. And then later on, I found out about them through magazines and stuff.
Yeah, me too.
What I will say is that the first time that I saw anything similar to this was with Global. global championship with Joe Pedicino's global from Texas. Remember the gimmick? It was called global because in kayfabe, right? Everybody was, including WWF, which was wacky. Everybody was a part of the Global Wrestling Federation, even though WWF would never come out on screen. And then during the control center portion where they would share the news, they would make it to where what are happening in the global, and then they would talk about WWF. Like he would talk about, and I'm like, what the hell? Even back then as a kid, I didn't understand it. But the kayfabe idea was that it was a unified federation, and everybody was. It was very carny.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that's the only time that I saw anybody working together. Of course, there was a Super Clash '88 where Jerry Lawler's company, which never really had a name, by the way, just Memphis, Mid Southern, if you're into PWI, and AWA tried working together, and that was a disaster. But yeah, I know all about Pro Wrestling USA though, and it wasn't gonna work.
So I asked Dave about that again when I saw him the other day, and he was just like, yeah, like people knew when they put it together that they were never going to be able to book, together. Like who can collaborate on booking when you also have to run your own separate territories? And the idea was to get this national television and move into New York and all this stuff. And it just never really happened.
You know what I've done in a very markish way. What I've actually done, I will admit to this, in times of boredom when I'm at the doctor's office or whatever, I've actually sat there and try to and I imagine, right? I imagine, let's say TK and Paul agree to work together. They just say they wake up and all of a sudden it's for the fans, right? And they're putting together a super card, right? I can't even. It won't work. Like I get stuck. There's a point where I just get stuck because if I can't rationalize it, because I'm trying to use their logic. I'm not being too much of a mark where everybody's all happy together. I'm actually trying to use. Just in the production of the show alone, they're gonna get stuck because Tony likes to do this whole like match mini video match, and then Paul likes to do this whole like 10-minute wait time between matches, right? Like if it's UFC. So they're gonna get stuck right there. And then just in the times, it's a disaster. It wouldn't work, but I don't know. I could daydream. That's not against the law.
So do you remember Dave had a guy who would write a column for him. His name was Mr. Mike. And I guess this guy also did the cartoons. He also drew the cartoons for.
But that's not Mike Lano, right?
No. I don't think Dave would let Mike Lano touch.
No, they were friends in the beginning. Then they became not friends. I don't want to say enemies, but
they're not enemies. But
Lano's a wacky character. He's from California, by the way.
He's from around here.
I know all about Mike Lano. Trust me.
Mike Lano's gimmick is to send you, whether it's an actual mail or if it's an email. He writes the entire letter that he's meaning to send you in the subject on an email. Like he doesn't actually have a body to the email. He writes the whole thing in the subject line. Or if he's writing you a personal letter, he writes the entire thing on the actual envelope. He doesn't actually put the letter.
These characters.
I've been forwarded and have received a few emails from him myself, and it is usually about whether or not we want to use his photographs. The whole thing's in the subject line. Like you just have to keep reading the subject line, and there you go. No, it is not him. But I did ask Dave. I was like, "What happened to this guy? Like, do you know?" And he's like, "Nope, I have no idea." I'm like, well, "We need to unearth this guy. This is a podcast topic or podcast interview subject to talk about the old days." Like, kind of makes me wonder if like maybe there was
sometimes I do think about that because how many people have come and gone from Dave's life, like at a professional level, because remember the first time I caught wind of that was when he talked about Wally Yamaguchi, right? He was like, he was my best. He actually said the term best friend for a while. That's what he said. And I'm thinking, but I was younger then. So I'm thinking, how does that happen? Now that I'm older, I could see how it happens. Uh-huh. But when you're younger and you think that people in your circle are going to be around forever, you can't fathom this idea of people coming and going like that. But I could only imagine how many people Dave has kind of been in a professional relationship with, and then they're just gone. You know, it's just
he outlasts all of his friends as wrestling fans too, right? Like even someone who I was just so happy to actually be able to talk to. I didn't even need to be in an interview, just just randomly, was Mike Tenay.
Yeah, that was his boy for years.
And Mike Tenay, I think, just got exhausted in watching wrestling as well. Like I'm sure these guys never get tired of talking about it because Mike Tenay
he was working
so much.
So I don't blame him for getting exhausted.
Yeah, for sure. But like, think about the energy that Dave has for CMLL, for AEW. Like Dave is like an excited kid waking up on Christmas to watch these pay-per-views sometimes, right?
I told you. He marks out.
He's so dialed into this stuff. But if you're Mike Tenay, or I'm just using Mike Tenay because he's one of Dave's friends that I've actually talked to, or in the past, Jim Cornette, or Mr. Mike. Like they just don't have the stamina that Big Dave does for the current product. And, I can see how Dave's like, hey guys, check this out. And they're like, the guy, kicked out of 3 brain busters. Like, why am I supposed to be excited about this? Like that's probably how they see some of that stuff. And so it's just interesting.
I'm gonna tell you what I think the secret is here. I'm not sure. Dave is always in the future to a degree that's kind of bothersome in a way because it's hard to pick his brain. Mm-hmm. But Dave is always in the future. He's never in the past, and to the point where he just wants. I'm surprised you've gotten him to talk about some of this stuff because he doesn't like.
He doesn't like it necessarily.
Like Brian has tried. Like because Brian watches a lot of old stuff and he wants to get, and he just, he'll say it like how is like he just constantly wants to move on, right?
Yeah, I don't have time to watch the old stuff. Yeah,
but he doesn't even like to think about the old stuff. That's the thing. Like he doesn't want to think about, because his whole thing is like, why? That's in the past. Let's talk about the future.
Stories. He'll talk about stories of the past or his reporting. Because I remember one of the most fun episodes I ever did with him was actually 2. So we went back and redid the Donahue thing. You remember that when he and I watched it together, and then we talked about it. And then there was some stuff around Ted Turner where he kind of was able to really go back into the recesses of his memory. What he doesn't like to do is watch a lot of old wrestling because he thinks it doesn't age well compared to what we're watching. And I think he has to like put himself back in that time. But when, like you said, when he's so looking forward to the future, that's probably a little bit harder for him to do than it is for us. He's probably looking for, he's probably seeing a bunch of holes and stuff. And like, why did they, why is this wrestle 3 minutes? Like he's just looking for stuff like that probably, or that stuff just stands out.
Terry Funk, that's the guy. That guy's untouchable to him.
Yeah, very much so.
But yeah, so a guy Dave's age marking off for like a Kyle Fletcher, right, which is the boy that he's pushing right now.
Yeah.
That you don't like Jim Cornette's not gonna do that, and all these other Mike Tenay, because they're always in the past. They're always kind of like holding on to like how wrestling used to be, and Dave's over here like that's gone. Let's not focus about that.
Yeah.
But I also think Dave lives his life like that. I'm assuming, of course, that it's not just with wrestling. It's just life in general. It's like.
What do you think about his fashion? Do you think he's fashion forward?
No, that's a whole different story. You know who else is like that? Is Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman's another guy that's like kind of like, because in interviews, Paul Heyman's like he doesn't want to talk about ECW, and not in the way where the topic is burned out, because that's more in a way of like that's dead. Like let's talk about the future. Paul Heyman's also very much future oriented. Yeah, and I think what I try to learn from these guys, right, from the Paul Heymans and even the Big Daves, is like. I should take that advice. Maybe we should focus on our future because the past is the past and it's gone.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the secret. I think that's why Dave kind of stays excited for these things. I still don't understand how he doesn't burn out. Maybe he does, and but he just kind of pushes through it. Because everybody burns out. Brian Alvarez burns out. We all burn out. I haven't watched wrestling in 2 weeks, 2-3 weeks now. And it's like. But Dave just keeps on going, and it's interesting. It's just weird. I mean, like he says, he says that there's only one Dave. So
I just wanted to shout out Fernando, who's always supporting us in these live streams, and also I think we recorded early enough for Dazza to be able to watch us live. I know he's a supporter of this after the fact. I see his comments after our
That
shows
goes
are over,
way back, man.
but Dazza, yeah, Dazza's OG, like one of the early F4W when we used to go to Vegas and such. So shout out to Dazza who's hanging out in the chat.
He's
today.
probably one of those 1 to 100 in the board, and that for the you get from 1 to. I think I'm like number like 500, and I'm pretty early too, and out there.
I told Tony Leader, I said, if you delete my original account and I can create a new account, I'll come back to the board, because I don't even want to go back and wonder what I was commenting on in 2005.
Yeah, but just don't look. You can keep the old account.
I think I was a June 2005 F4W subscriber.
That's
like
you're probably either 1 through 100, because that's when he opened it, the board.
Yeah, I was like 2 weeks, I think, after he had opened it, I subscribed. So, okay, now, so the reason why I pointed out Mr. Mike is because Mr. Mike covered the Pro Wrestling USA TV taping, and Mr. Mike's consensus was Ric Flair needed to be there. Randy Savage was also there and was not used. Otherwise, he was like, what separates this from anything that we're currently watching on TV? Like, how are they going to outdo WWF if they're not even using Rick and all this stuff? So that was his consensus about Pro Wrestling USA. So we've been talking about all the jumps to WWE, and some have actually jumped back. Blackjack Mulligan and Barry Windham are in WWF, and Dave is surprised about Barry because he thought Barry was going to be a future NWA champion. Also, Mike Rotunda jumped, and as we know, Rotunda and Barry Windham would be a short-lived tag team. And then the Bulldogs, who we had mentioned, were in WWE or WWF. They're already done with these guys. They're like, we're out. I don't remember that. I was trying to think about when I would have first seen the Bulldogs, and I guess it wasn't until like mid '85 or something, like post WrestleMania would have been the first time. So then when we're talking about them being in at the end of '84, like I have no memories of that. I have memories of the Dynamite Kid match against the Cobra, which I think was around that time. But together as a tag team, I don't really remember them. And I think Dynamite was just unhappy with how that they were being used. And so he's like, all right, we're out. We're just going to go back to Japan and make our living there. I don't know if you've read this book or you have this book, but I started reading the British Bulldogs book that came out in 2025. And so you get early Tom Billington. The jealousy between he and Davey, like, was, according to the author, started almost immediately because of how they were both trained and such. So I'm in the very early stages of that book, but I can't wait to get to this time frame. Just wondering, like, what were they thinking when they signed the big money to come to WWF? All right, so other stuff around this time frame in WWF. Dave said George Scott and his increasing power was possibly a good thing because it took some stuff off Vince McMahon's plate. And I find that to be fascinating if we compare it to today's wrestling, because what is a common criticism of Tony Khan, which is he does not allow people to do things for his own reasons. And the one thing that he always says is, you know, every time the booking gets better for AEW, Tony Khan has the same story, which is, yeah, I took it back over because I let some people do some stuff, and now I took it back over. That's why it's better. But there are other things that, you know, if he wants to be so controlling of the booking, like, why don't you give other stuff to other people? Because there are things that they can improve on. And
like Ring of Honor.
Right. Ring of Honor, one of them. I think some of the women's division stuff could be promoted a little bit better. You just look at the product. I don't know how much he's involved.
You know what they need, and you're gonna get upset. I'm gonna say upset, but you're gonna kind of maybe not agree with this statement. What Tony needs, he needs like a Bruce Pritchard on his side.
Mm.
A guy that's a producer, not a a guy that could see the bigger picture to make the wrestlers larger than life, because that's what Bruce does. Well, when he was in his prime, like when he was really, think about all the classic vignettes that we got back when we were kids. Think about the theme, like all that stuff came from Bruce, and that's his gift, And so that Tony needs a guy that thinks outside the box like that. Like, how could we get so and so to be more over? How could we get so and so, Because I think about. Remember, I'm bored in the doctor's office. I'm like, one of the things that I liked that WWE did that would work for the women. It just like, remember when they had Lacey Evans just show up there and tell her story, and they got her over, and then they botched that.
Yeah.
Like, have some of these women, like Willow Nightingale, just stand there and just tell her story as a person, as a female coming up in the business. I mean, you don't have to get too controversial, but just enough to connect as a real person with the audience. Things like that. Devote or do what they did back in the Attitude Era with Mick Foley and Dustin, where they were doing these videos every week talking about their life. That works, and it gets people over. Things like that. I mean. But Tony needs a guy like that, because he doesn't have that. And that's why we have this match after match after match after match. And that's boring to me.
Do you think that Tony Khan, the fan, his brain of the fan rather than the promoter, dictates AEW TV too much?
Yes, the fan. Right. And the fan of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Yes.
What do you think of? So he had this quote the other day, and look, I'm only reading Twitter clips, so I don't want to take anything out of context about what he said. But the gist of what I saw was he said he loves keeping up with the minute to minute of Dynamite. That's how. But Collision to him is just a show about wrestling, that he wants people to watch Collision to say, hey, if you want to watch a great match or a great show of wrestling matches, go watch Collision. Now, I understand that philosophy, but if you look at the difference in the ratings from Dynamite to Collision, basically what he is saying is that the obsessiveness of Dynamite is what actually works with the viewers, and maybe the wrestling matches is not going to work with viewers. Now, there's other stuff like time slot and everything. But I thought it was interesting because sometimes he doesn't say anything. Like, I think someone asked him about the Moxley storyline and the Death Riders and what it was about, and he went on this like whole thing about, I think people are, from day one, they've been like not really sure about that. I'm like, dude, you're the one telling the story.
Yeah, we're not sure because the story has changed 30 different times. So,
but sometimes he almost says too much, I feel like. And that was one of those times where I was like, okay, well, I mean, that's how I figured it was. I figured that Dynamite was the show that you paid attention to more so than Collision. And Collision was just kind of your wrestling fans' dream kind of show of work rate matches. But it does say something when, Dynamite does 2 and 2.5 times the viewership that Collision does. So it was just an interesting thing that he made mention of. Your Bruce Pritchard idea is, I wonder now.
Fernando Saez is a Bruce Pritchard type. I didn't say literally Bruce Pritchard.
Yeah, can't be Bruce Pritchard. Exactly that Bruce. Though, if Paul got sick of Bruce, I'm sure Bruce would would turn AEW babyface to get a job. How many times he had to do that? Like just to eat it and come back and pretend like nothing had happened before. That's the business though for him.
Yeah, well, he turned heel on WWE because he never thought he was going to come back on his podcast, but then he came back, and I don't know. I stopped listening when he came back because I knew at that point he wasn't going to say anything. So yeah. I stopped listening at that point.
Yeah, I listened one time. We were on a road trip. I think we were going to LA for one of those Long Beach New Japan shows, and so it was kind of like a road trip with a bunch of dudes. And we put on one of the Something to Wrestle With shows. And by about the 20th minute of ads in the first hour, I was like, I'm out. I cannot do this. Like, this is like unlistenable. Yeah. But no, your Bruce Pritchard idea. So to somebody who's a little bit outside of the AEW sandbox from a thinking perspective, I think is good. The problem is that person will probably get frustrated because Tony definitely wants to stay within that sandbox. Because every time they've gone outside of that sandbox, they've gotten critiqued really hard by their own audience. Like, think of MJF and Adam Cole and the Brochachos, right? That is outside of the AEW
And I love that.
sandbox
I
thinking.
love that.
And if you look back, AEW hardcore fans will say that that was some of the worst thing that because it's too much like WWE. We don't want to watch WWE. Like that's a hard thing that Tony does have to gatekeep for.
Yeah, but okay, but that's fine. Then it becomes a choice, right? So what is it that you want? Like, do you want this small sandbox where you're never going to hit 1 million, viewers, or do you want to try to expand? Like, that's the question. I'm not going to sit here and try to convince anybody of anything. Like, to me, it's like it's just a choice. Like, what is it that you want? And if the answer is you want to stay in the small sandbox where you're having 20-minute, prelim matches all the time, okay, fine. That's you made that choice. But here are the consequences of that choice. You're looking at 200,000 viewers, the max, on a Saturday night. So that's it. That's all it is. It's a choice. And that's something that Tony Khan doesn't have to answer to anybody. So he can do whatever he wants, whether they're making money or not, So that's where I'm at. Like somebody like a Bruce Pritchard, a producer that comes in and knows how to promote the wrestlers beyond the wrestling, that's gonna get you more eyeballs and more interest.
Okay, now here's a deeper question though, and you understanding of certain philosophies. Does Tony really want to have a bigger sandbox, or is it easier to stay in the small? He's already rich, right? He's already done
uber rich, not just rich.
He's already done 5 times as much in the wrestling business than anybody thought he would ever do. He's created this company that is good competition, but also it has expanded the environment for jobs and for the workforce in the wrestling business. So he's already done beyond what people were even thinking he could do. Is he just comfortable? Is he cool? Like, is he like, hey, this is what I've always wanted to do? Because if he does, think about being as big as WWE and think about what all of that brings. So much more attention, so much more criticism, so much more expectation. Like, WWE had the single most successful year in the history of their company from a business standpoint, and lots of people are trying to say that they had a bad year. Now, there's creative stuff that's mixed in there, but think of that pressure. Maybe he's happy being in this sandbox.
Yeah, and he also doesn't seem like somebody that takes criticism well, so maybe he is happy. No, that's fine. Maybe I agree with you, everything you just said. Maybe that's his thing. He never has to make money. There's no that's his toy. We talked about it, so that's fine. And I enjoy his wrestling. Like, I watch it. I'm not 100% invested. I would like a little more storylines, but it is what it is. But another thing that I like is, for example, when the Young Bucks as comedy guys are amazing to me. I get a kick out of them. And when they were doing the whole that we're losing money and we're carrying the satchel of like money all over the place. See, that I like that stuff. That's kind of like the Bruce Pritchard stuff right there, because you're giving us reasons to like cheer or boo these guys instead of just because the thing about just focusing on work rate, right? That's a whole nother understanding of wrestling, and most your casual audience doesn't have time to learn about that. It's the same thing with movies, with films, right? I get frustrated because I'm all about the great films, and then people are over here talking about how Minecraft was the greatest thing ever made. I'm like, bro, that's trash.
Oh my God, that movie was so bad, but
that's junk food.
My stepkids were saying the punchlines before they were coming.
That's right, and that makes money. I get it. So, but in order to appreciate a great film, you have to be almost trained. And it sounds snobbish, I get it. You have to learn the ebbs and flows of good storytelling. The same thing with wrestling. If you're gonna sit there and watch a match, you have to understand the purpose of why things are happening, stuff like that. And so your casual fan base doesn't have time for that. You have to visually stimulate them through a language they're gonna understand, right? Mm-hmm. So that means being more performative, more of a soap opera kind of thing. And so the AEW doesn't have that. It's their choice, and they're gonna stay in that small sandbox forever. You're not gonna have a Steve Austin come around, in that form of wrestling. You're just not. It's just not gonna happen because Steve Austin got over because of the whole like feuding with Vince and all the wacky things that were happening, week in and week out. So yeah, it's just a choice, and that's where he decides to be, and that's fine.
What was your most fulfilling popcorn movie in 2025?
Probably one of the Marvel movies because I'm a huge Marvel nerd, so it would have to be like either I think Thunderbolts was. I really enjoyed that movie. Yeah.
I thought you were gonna say F1.
No, that was fun too. That was so like it was so generic, but it was fun. But it got over because it was how generic it was.
I'm really into the IMAX gimmick these days because I'm just like, if I'm gonna see a movie, I might as well see it on the best screen possible. And so watching F1 on IMAX was a really fun experience.
That's a great gimmick. Are you more of IMAX or Dolby Cinema?
I look IMAX first, and then I look Dolby Cinema second.
Okay. But it's hard to just watch a regular movie in the theater now, right?
It is, because we had to see we went to Arizona for Thanksgiving, and I wanted to take my niece and my stepdaughter and my wife and my sister to see Wicked, the second one, which wasn't that good. No, but to to see it on like the small like little screen, I was like, I don't feel like we got our fill. But anyways, all right, let's move on. So Jesse the Body. I forgot, or maybe I didn't even realize how long this blood clot thing went on. Because what I remember, I think he was in one of the first Saturday Night Main Event matches. There was like a triple threat, like him and Roddy, and maybe against the Uncle Elmer and Cousin Luke and all them. But I really remember him wrestling in '85, so I know he comes back, but he doesn't come back for very long.
No, he tried to wrestle. Yeah, he's booked quite a few times in '85. Yeah.
So Jesse is out with a blood clot, and Dave takes a shot at WWE in a very sideways way. He goes, "They're still paying his salary, but I'm not sure if it's them or if it's Jesse's insurance."
But you know what? It was a blessing because they tried him out in the commentator's booth, and he
became the best. What did you think about him almost not quite making the Observer Hall of Fame?
Well, I don't keep up with that anymore, but I didn't know he came that very close. He should be in it. He should be in it. I mean, what do you want me to say? Seth Rollins and him should be in it. I don't know what.
I think Seth will get in. I do think Jesse will get in. And you know who else I think will get in? Maybe to Dave's dismay, is Gorilla.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Gino should be in. Fabulous Moolah should be in. But that's not. It's like every Hall of Fame. They're not always fair.
The Brian Solomon book that I know people are really jazzed about. I still have to finish that. I started it, but the beginning of the book is like the history of Gorilla's family and where they came from. So it reads kind of like a history textbook. And I was like, okay, I'm going to stop. I need to get in the right mindset, but I want to get back to it because I've heard nothing but good things. And LaRocca, he wants to read that book. And Brian Solomon, who I didn't realize worked for WWE back in the day. He worked on like the magazine or something. So he interviewed LaRocca not too long ago. So they have a little bit of a relationship. So I told John, I go, let's blow through this Gorilla book and then we'll bring on Solomon to talk about it. So that'll be fun if we actually get to do that. All right.
But Gino, the thing is that he was, forget about the commentary thing, even though I'm very nostalgic because he was in my era. But he was also a businessman. He was also in the office. He's very influential in a lot of things that went right with the WWF during that time. So there's more to Gino than just like, oh, he was a horrible commentator. And he was also a draw. I mean, he drew money when he was a wrestler, So, he needs to be reevaluated and be put into the Hall of Fame. Seth Rollins, I'm going to die on that hill for sure.
Seth is going to get in. He's 100%.
But I'm talking about now, dude. Like now, he should have. Like it's an insult that he has to wait this long,
Okay, but Punk just barely got in this year.
But then that tells you that I'm trying to bring up the bias of that Hall of Fame because why is Kenny Omega in? Why is Kenny Omega in? And again, this is not. Let's not argue how Kenny Omega doesn't deserve to get in, because he does.
Mm-hmm.
I'm arguing why is he in before someone like Seth. I have the answer to that.
Can I tell you why?
Why?
Because he was in the beginning of starting competition to WWE. That's why. It's less to me. It's less about, and not that much less, because the New Japan stuff was awesome, but it's that, but it's also helping Tony and the Bucks, and to an extent Moxley and Jericho create AEW. Like, that's where they get in as like trend-setting pioneers in that way. But also, yes, the backdrop of being the greatest wrestler of your time. But that is also what Seth doesn't have. That's
Okada in my eyes, but
okay. Well, sure, Omega, Okada. But now I'm gonna feed into your Seth argument, which is Seth working for WWE. Like, if Seth wanted to be the greatest wrestler of his era, he could not do it in WWE because the style is limiting the ceiling of what that is to today's wrestling fan base. But if Seth was like, yeah, I'll go to New Japan or I'll go to AEW, Seth could have been having those matches 100%.
But okay, but now you're focused on matches. What about drawing money? Like Seth has drawn more money than Kenny Omega. Seth has been in bigger stages than Kenny Omega. It's like a Japanese baseball player, right? Like he let's say a Japanese baseball player went and played in Japanese league, and then he went to the Winter League, and he had this amazing numbers wherever he went. He just didn't go to the major leagues, right? And let's say there was a World Hall of Fame for like not just the MLB, just the World Hall of Fame, which was more prestigious than the MLB Hall of Fame. So he would be there. But let's say somebody like who's like also ranked kind of player that it's almost there, but not really. I'm trying to think because there's so many of them, and I could because Scott Rowling would have fit that, but he got in. So
yeah.
Anyways, I just feel like we shouldn't use. It's so unfair to use Seth Rollins being in the WWE as against him going into the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame like that. Think about how that sounds. Like, it just
okay. But now here's the argument. Now you can actually do the comparison because Seth's peers have gotten in before him, and what the Observer voting base. Now remember, this is not just Dave voting; it's a lot of people voting, including. I know
people influenced by Dave, by the way. So.
Well, but you think Jeff Jarrett is influenced by Dave's voting based on who he would vote for? There. Well, I mean, I'm assuming that Jeff voted in the past. I don't know.
I hope so because I respect Jeff a lot.
But I mean, Jeff was very outwardly negative on the John Cena tap, right? He was one of the current guys in wrestling today who actually spoke out against John Cena tapping out in the way that he did. So I'm sure Jeff has voted in the past. I don't know if he's a current voter, but my point is that if you are looking at it from the perspective of who are Seth's peers in WWE who got in, Punk, Cody, Roman Reigns, all of those guys meant more to Vince's bottom line and to the current WWE's bottom line than Seth as a singular player. Seth is more like the Triple H to The Rock and Stone Cold argument. And Triple H did get in. So Seth's going to get in.
Well, he better have gotten in, yeah.
But Seth is not bigger than Roman, Cody, or Punk. He has actually helped those guys become.
What about Randy Orton?
It's a tough one because I've voted Randy Orton and Edge for years and years and years, and
more so Randy than Edge because I could understand Edge. Edge wasn't he retired for a few years. There's a lot. I wish Edge was in. He should be in, but I could see why. But Randy Orton has been consistent for 20-some years. Big top draw, headline, made a lot of money. Respected, right? You know this. Respected internally. Maybe not so much by the fans because he's not bombastic in his work rate, but internally, everybody praises Randy Orton's work rate. It's because he knows what to do, when to do it. He's slow as molasses when he's in the ring, yeah, but I mean, he knows how to work, right? So he should be in for sure.
I
But
think they're both going to get in. Part of the problem with Randy Orton and Edge, they don't go away. They are always there. You know the old Jim Cornette line about, how can I miss you if you're never gone?
yeah,
When Randy Orton retires, people are going to miss him, and because he was a giant star, and I think that will help his candidacy. It's just people see him so much. They see
now
him
he's a
on
giant
TV.
human being as much as he's a giant star.
Yeah, he's huge. Edge, same thing, right? Edge's work is actually still pretty good, but I think people are just tired of him. They've seen him so much.
But he was gone for so long, though. So the being around doesn't.
Do you think his comeback was better than the memory of him leaving, though?
No, he's the opposite of Shawn Michaels, where Shawn Michaels came back way better than when he left. You know
who would have been an interesting case study if Jericho didn't get into the Hall of Fame when he did. I wonder if his overexposure, and we're going to talk about Jericho in a little bit. I wonder if his overexposure would have hurt his candidacy, but he got in when he got in, so he's in. But just the idea of like, oh my God, like, because current 2025 Chris Jericho, a lot of fans kind of treat that guy as a joke. And I'm like, man, but this is Chris, what politically, whatever you want to say about his politics. I'm talking strictly about his.
But he also had a lot of controversy besides his politics. He had accusations which were never, verified or nothing like that. But so there was a lot of stuff. I kind of feel bad for him because if that's not true, like imagine all the shit he had to deal with, like a lot, like serious shit. But to his credit, he looks about 20 years younger now that he's running around losing all that weight. And
I wonder if he stopped drinking as much, like, because you and I know as we get older, you got to be a little bit more mindful of that.
I am not drinking. Actually, I'm not drinking. I'm drinking coffee, and I'm not gonna drink all day today on New Year's Eve. That was a big thing for me. I look at the water.
I told Crystal, my wife, that like the last few years, whenever we go out to a restaurant, I was always trying to try different whiskey or bourbon cocktails. So I was like, okay, 2023 was going to be the year of the old fashioned. And then last year was the year of the Manhattan. And this year, 2026, is going to be the year of the Monte Carlo. So whenever we go out to dinner, I'll have a Monte Carlo. But like the problem with drinking isn't just that you're drinking. It's that it causes you to be less mindful about eating. Yes. And because you're buzzed and you want to kill the buzz sometimes. So what do? You eat something. And so it's just, they don't work great together. So that's really what you have to be mindful of.
Yeah, he looks very healthy right now. He looks like he knocked off at least 10 years. Because even back then, even recently when he lost a lot of weight, he still looked old facially. Now he looks young and he's just getting off the road. Is that what they always say? Like all these guys, they always improve when they get off the road and look younger, So, yeah.
Except for the Hardy Boys, for whatever reason, they just always look so much older than I think about them.
Yeah. What about what the opposite of all this is baseball players? Have you ever noticed how they let themselves go 1 year after retirement? Like they look so different with the gray hair and.
Okay, here's why. They're always wearing a hat, so you can never tell.
Yeah, that's true. But
I remember my dad would say, he was like, who looks like the coolest baseball player? Cal Ripken Jr. You put that guy in normal clothes and you take off the hat, and he just looks like an old man. Like he used to always say that, and it's true. Like Matt Williams, same thing. That dude's got his ball cap on tight. He looks like the meanest man, and then he takes off his hat. And he's got the Mean Gene Okerlund haircut, and that's you're right. Like, who is this guy?
Yeah, but I mean, I guess the physique, because they don't have to train anymore, so that's a big difference too. They got the gut going and everything. So, but yeah, it's interesting. But wrestlers are the opposite. But then again, Dave would always say wrestlers, they go on the juice or whatever when they're hurt, so they come back looking better than when they left.
Yeah. All right, let's get through the rest of this stuff because I do want to get to Starrcade, and then I have some questions about 2026 for you. So Jack Reynolds was a commentator, and this is, we're talking about 1984 shenanigans here. So Jack Reynolds does the Pro Wrestling USA taping. He's the commentator on the taping. So obviously you tape, and then you're eventually going to put it on TV. So what does Vince McMahon do? Well, after Jack Reynolds does his Pro Wrestling USA taping, Vince hires him immediately and puts him on WWF television And I think these are even before the Pro Wrestling USA tapes go to market. So you hear him on those Pro Wrestling USA shows, and he's already working for Vince.
What a chess player Vince was. I'm telling you, I admire his how business savvy he is during this time.
Did you ever hear of the turkey tournaments? I never heard of this, and I asked Big Dave on air. He did not remember this. These were the original reverse battle royals, but they were inside of a cage. So the person who was out last or who stayed in the cage the longest was the turkey of the match. So what they would do is they would have guys like Big John Studd or Bobby Heenan as the person who would actually lose the match. So the idea was to get out as soon as possible. So the babyface, the smart babyface,
a coward,
right? this is what I don't understand. Which was what I always hated, the WWE version of the tag team battle royal or the tag team cage match, because the babyface would always be out first, and then the heels would double team the other babyface, and then the other babyface would want to come back in to help. And I was like, the psychology does never work in these matches.
Right. No, I don't like the tag team. Those were the Steiners and the Money Inc. had one of those and the Raw ones, and I was like, this is weird. I don't get it.
So these turkey tournaments were kind of nuts. And I guess there was one show, I don't remember which territory they were in or what city they were in, but they didn't allow multiple people to be in the cage. So instead, Vince's way of skirting around this, and maybe as a FU to whatever commission was on board, he had like 10 cage matches of all singles matches, and they all ended in like 3 or 4 minutes. Like that was his FU to the commission. I'm not sure the fans were too happy though.
Right.
All right. Eddie Mansfield, Jim Wilson, and Thunderbolt Patterson have testified before the Georgia State Legislature, trying to get the state to enact a wrestling commission. They claim low pay, fraud, and exploitation. I wouldn't even hear Jim Wilson's name until he wrote that one book, and then Dave would have him on Wrestling Observer Live. So this goes all the way back to 84.
He had that KLB all-time great classic episode with Warren Downey Jr. With Dr. D's. You had Dr. D there and Jim Wilson. The rest is up to you to your imagination. It was awesome. One of the greatest shows ever.
Also want to shout out Maria Graciela, who is also a great supporter in the chat.
Yep, she always comes in here. Thank you.
Okay, here's a prelude to Saturday night's main event. And I have access to real time, Big Dave. So he wrote in the end of 84, TV Guide ran a short item mentioning that wrestling will soon be on Sports World. It will indeed be Titan Wrestling. According to an NBC source, wrestling will not be a weekly thing, nor are there any plans for such. He called it very unlikely Titan will get a weekly network show, and he couldn't see it happening. However, there are people at NBC who are hot for wrestling at the present time. That would become Saturday night's main event. So when I asked Dave about this, he said, in hindsight, Vince always saying that if WrestleMania failed, he would have went out of business is probably false, because they would have had NBC ready to do Saturday night's main event. And it's literally the next month, right after the first WrestleMania. So he's like, yeah, probably Vince not telling the truth on that, because NBC was right there for them post WrestleMania.
Maybe taking on some debt is what they meant. Like Vince was like liquid up until WrestleMania. He threw all the chips in. Yeah, he wouldn't have gotten out of business, but he would have to take out some loans, to stay afloat. And then obviously NBC would have saved them eventually.
Yeah.
But that's probably what they mean when they say they're going to go out of business, which is possible.
Wrestlers stretching the truth. It's not the wrestlers that we know. He also wrote, this is classic Dave. 2020 will be doing a segment on pro wrestling within the next month or two. Eddie Mansfield will be featured. Then he just capitalized. Don't miss it.
Yeah, well, that's good.
When does this actually air in '85? Like what month?
I
Do you
don't know, but
remember?
it's on YouTube. It's on
Yeah,
YouTube.
it's classic. I remember the first time I saw it, and I actually want to mention somebody who recently passed away, who was very influential in my wrestling fandom. Uh, one of my cousin Bruce's buddies from high school. His name was Carlos. When I was, gosh, he would have been a senior in high school, and I was probably still in like maybe the 8th grade or something, or maybe a little bit older, because I think he took me to Oakland Coliseum to see what was originally supposed to be Ric Flair and Lex Luger on the Great American Bash tour, but Ric Flair had already left for WWF, and so all 2,000 people of us in the Oakland Coliseum, which seats like 15,000 for wrestling. There's nothing but "We Want Flair" chants all night long, and this was kind of a bad show. But he had an old collection of wrestling tapes because he's like 4 or 5 years older than me, and so he would just let me borrow like his old wrestling tapes, and that was the first time I had seen the 2020 thing. So this would have probably been like 1991, and it was attached to some random wrestling matches from the mid 80s. But that was the first time I saw it, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what is this?" Like just the Dr. D thing slapping him in the ear, and John Stossel, and then how we would do it back then. Like you just ask people, "Did you see this?" How? Like I remember asking my dad, "Do you remember this?" Nope, he didn't remember. Like, and so it was just wild. Like you just have to sit there without any information. As a kid back then, pre-internet, you're just like have all these questions in your mind that you're just dying to ask people someday, and then you eventually figure out what happened. But yeah, so R.I.P. to my friend Carlos. I hadn't really been in touch with him as adults, but when I was a little kid, he was very influential. He was a big Ric Flair guy, just loved Ric Flair, and not the biggest fan of what WWF had turned into at that point. So even then in 1991, he'd been watching wrestling since the early 80s, and he was already done kind of by the early
Do you know?
90s.
I know you didn't keep in touch with him, but do you know if he was still a fan now, like at least of AW, which is?
I do not think so, because if he was, he would have reached out to me about stuff, and he never
Right.
did. What actually happened is I think he went to the Marines, and then so he was a Marine. He became super conservative, like really, really crazy conservative. He went into boxing a little bit. I think he suffered some concussions because he was not very good. So he tried, like later in his life, he tried to get into boxing, something he really liked. And the last time I had even heard anything about him, he was at my parents' house in Tucson, and my brother-in-law said he was just spewing like MAGA stuff, and they told him like, "Dude, you need to stop."
Yeah.
So he was kind of going somewhere, and maybe not in a great place, and it was probably some alcoholism possibly involved. But he was such a young dude. I don't even think he was maybe his mid-50s.
Right. Yeah.
So it's kind of sad. But all right. Next, Dave writes again in capital letters with 2 exclamation points. Bombshell. It's official. Sergeant Slaughter will be in the AWA starting January 13th. He will be handcuffed to Sheik Casey during the Blackwell Brody match in St. Paul. Does that mean we'll get a Slaughter Brody series this spring? Even I may have to start paying attention to the AWA then.
So it seems like during this time, that was a big get by the AWA. If it made Dave write in capital letters like Danny used to do back in the day, it's a big deal. So, and we talked about it in the last episode. It was a big deal.
Well, I mean,
Slaughter jumped ship.
This man had a action figure and was in a cartoon, so it just seemed like to be right up WWF's alley, right? Like you always kind of wondered, like if this was there, like why didn't they buy into it? But I guess you couldn't have Slaughter and Hogan in the same spot.
But see, and these little stories kind of remind me of how much of a genius Vince was at this time, because Vern had so many opportunities. Not just Vern, like all these other promoters, right? They had all these guys that you could have made something with. You could have capitalized on the fame that Sergeant Slaughter already brought into the territory, and they just wouldn't do it. It's just like, okay, it's just wrestling. Kind of reminds me of like when I see Hardy Cameron's puppet, and I just see all the money being flushed down the toilet. Like, it's
Yeah.
like if this was WWE, they would have monetized that puppet a long time ago and made $1 gazillion. But to Tony Khan, now we just wrestle here, and so this puppet is, we're not gonna monetize it, or maybe they have. I don't know, but it's just.
I don't think so. I haven't seen them. You know that my Target, which had lots of AEW figures back in the day, no AEW figures anymore.
Damn, so they're going backwards in a way.
If you were to put money on one of these two women to actually break out a little bit, would you put money on Maxine or Harley Cameron?
Harley Cameron. She's multi-talented. You give her a guitar, and Harley Cameron is an entertainer. Like, she reminds me of an old like vaudeville like performer back. That's way, but some of our younger people are not gonna like they're just trying to do everything, literally everything, and yeah, she's awesome, man.
Can I tell you that this may be an unpopular opinion? I think when she wrestles, it takes her down.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. So she should be like a manager or something. Maybe like part of the commentary. I don't know, but definitely not part of the commentary team. I take that back. But yeah. So,
dude,
she's a star.
She could do a better job than Tony Schiavone. That dude is on his last legs.
Really, I think he has it together. I think for his age, people got to remember that I came up with Chick Hearn at the end.
Yeah, you did.
So I know bad commentary when I hear it.
Well, I think I don't know Tony. I'm sure Tony's a really good person. Lots of people love him. I just think, he's in the JR spot, in the guy who's supposed to have all of this wisdom about wrestling. And every time I see him wait for his turn so that he can call a spot, there's some sort of flub. One of the ones, I can't even remember who was in the ring, but there was a match, and he was like, there was some selling going on, and then the comeback starts, and so Tony has to take over, and right as the comeback starts, he starts talking about how good the selling was and how much punishment he took. I was like, dude, that was 10 seconds ago. Like, the comeback is happening. Like, you need, but it's also the way that they're produced. Excalibur, and Bryan Danielson almost is doing his own, like, he's almost doing his own director's commentary while these guys are doing commentary, which is why it's awesome, because he's actually believable, but it's almost like they're not in the same place watching the same stuff. Like, I'd rather just almost watch it with Danielson doing a director's commentary.
But it's interesting with Danielson, because if you notice, when a match gets too violent or too out of control, you just don't hear from him, because he's so like in shock, because he understands all that stuff.
Yeah.
So he whenever a match gets too violent, he'll kind of speak very soft, like, why are they doing that? Like, stuff like that, But he doesn't get as involved when it's like a regular wrestling match.
All right, Starrcade 84. I remember when I first saw this show, seeing Flair and Dusty on that poster, the $1 million match, and now we have Tony Khan giving out $200,000, $500,000 randomly for matches. He's killed that gimmick dead.
Yes.
Smoking Joe Frazier as the referee. Oh my God. This just screams giant to my brain. And you watch this show, and this show kind of sucks.
It does suck. That just kind of sucks.
There was one, maybe two good matches, depending on what you thought of some of the undercard, but these undercard matches didn't even really follow a lot of what the storylines were happening in these different territories at the time. And Tully Blanchard and Ricky Steamboat was the better match of the night. And even Flair and Dusty, now they would go back to back with this match for 85. But I was reading up on some of the history of this show, and I think they had the $1 million gimmick before they even had Dusty and Rick as the two guys. And I want to say that maybe they only promoted it as Dusty versus Rick, maybe a month out from the Thanksgiving of 84. But now we talk about business versus creative. The business side of it was successful because they went closed circuit again, and it was a money making thing. And they did 2 Starrcades before Vince did one WrestleMania. So it had, if Starrcade 84 sucked, maybe Vince changes his mind about the timing of WrestleMania, but because it's a good business gimmick, and it is successful. But when you look back, you go, oh my gosh, this show's not great. Ric Flair, and I'm gonna give this person's name, Conrad, capital C-O-N Rad. He asked, there was on Rick's old podcast, which I don't think he does anymore.
No,
but,
of course not. He said so many things he shouldn't be saying on that podcast. It was gone within like 6 months.
So the end of Dusty and Rick it stopped on blood. Joe Frazier, the referee, stops the match on blood, and Dusty's really angry. So a listener asked Rick on that old podcast, why was the match only 10 minutes long? Like you were known for your long matches. And you know what Rick said?
What?
Joe Frazier, just an inexperienced referee.
So
he blamed the whole thing on Joe Frazier, the work referee spot, because they're setting up what. And I asked Big Dave about this, and he said they wanted Joe Frazier and Dusty Rhodes for the next year.
Yeah, that was my idea. I've always thought that was the idea that they wanted, because Joe Frazier was getting paydays from both companies at this point, right? Yeah, so he was a guy that didn't need money, unfortunately, but that's a whole different story. So yeah, the idea was like Joe Frazier versus Dusty at Starrcade 85.
Yeah. So, but like Rick will say things where kayfabe is not even in his like Hulk Hogan died because he was taking street drugs. Like that dude literally said that.
I know.
Where Hulk Hogan's widow had to come out against him and say, like, what are you talking about? And then Rick had to apologize and say, oh, that's just what people told me. Sorry. And in the one moment where he can actually talk about what was going on at Starrcade 84, I guess maybe he didn't want to say it was a bad match or whatever, but he's like, no, Joe Frazier, just inexperienced referee, stopped the match early. He's like, what? This is not storyline. We want the real answer.
I remember one time Conrad, capital letter C-O-N, Rad. He had, it was kind of cool. He had Ric Flair do a commentary on the 1992 Royal Rumble, which is awesome.
That's your thing, man. Yeah, that's your favorite thing.
And it was we're talking about director's commentary with Brian earlier. Well, this is kind of like that's what you're gonna get. However, it wasn't that. It was every stereotype you're gonna hear stated as fact. For example, when Haku comes out, he went into the whole, I was with this guy at a bar one time, and I saw him, and I'm like, bro, come on, like just tell us about the actual fuck this kayfabe shit.
Yeah.
And so he said that we call him the human Vegematic. That did make me laugh. But yeah, it was just bad. It was bad. A whole hour of Rick just being in kayfabe, and then those, like you said, those weird non-kayfabe things that are also not true. I'm like, if you're gonna break kayfabe, at least be honest. Like at that point, you've already broken it. So that's Rick, man. Rick being Rick, still around to this day. Amazing.
Still around. Man, yeah. I think I mentioned to you, I saw him in Vegas for Mania weekend. That dude was in rough shape. And did you see the thing where somebody said that they paid an exorbitant amount of money for him to do a cameo for his father or something? And like Rick called the dad by the wrong name, and he was wasted, and the guy was just like, that was like the worst $5,000 I ever spent or whatever.
Yeah, and then he's telling people not to get married when people are paying up to say congratulations on your wedding. And it just, all these things are popping out on social media, by the way. All these cameos where he just goes off the rails, they're all popping out on social media.
Yeah, bad. All right, so the yearbook, I mentioned the yearbook. We're going to get to Comedy Dave, because the Comedy Dave segment this is probably the best one that we've ever done. I mean, not that we've ever done, but that Dave just had because Dave is just bitter right now. He's just clowning on everything. All right, so the yearbook, Dave had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 7 of the top stories of 84. Number 1 was Hulkamania. Number 2 was the death of David Von Erich. Number 3 was the TBS takeover with Vince McMahon buying the time slot. Number 4 was Jumbo Tsuruta beating Nick Bockwinkel and actually becoming a touring champion, because usually what would happen is Nick would go to Japan, or anybody would go to Japan, lose the belt, and then regain it while in Japan, so the fans in the US don't know. But actually, Jumbo Tsuruta came to the US as the AWA champion in AWA towns and defended the title before losing it back. So to Dave, that was like a historic thing. Tiger Mask returns to wrestling. He went over all of the jumps to WWF, and then the last one was 1984 was the year of overexposure, which I think is my story of 2025 as well. Like, how can you make me sick of wrestling? Well, 2025 almost did me in. All right, so let's hit up our favorite segment, Comedy Dave, and I just still kept this one short Dave soundbite for the intro to Comedy Dave. All right. Okay, so the first one. So Brutus Beefcake, who Dave finally realized was Ed Leslie and Dizzy Hogan and Hulk Hogan's buddy and not his real life brother. He beat Sal Balomo at Madison Square Garden. And Dave wrote, "It was a solid opener for any card, as Sal looked good, and Brutus looked like he'd been visiting his pharmacist even more than his gym lately." Shots fired at Brutus Beefcake.
But you can't win with Dave. He unloads on you if you're juiced up or if you're heavy, or if you're fat. It's like, well, you can't win with this guy.
This one was great. Have you ever wondered why Hulk wears a headband? Makes as much sense as Giant Baba cutting his sleeves off of his sweatshirts. Because Giant Baba had skinny arms, and
that's
Hulk
right.
And Hulk doesn't have any hair, so that was a good one.
That'll pop me.
All right. The TV taping the next morning did draw about 400 to the Chase Hotel, with the highlight being Junkyard Dog inviting the fans into the ring to dance with him. By the way, Dog dances about as well as he wrestles, I am told.
He wasn't that good. But he was, I don't know, somebody was still very charismatic.
He did the one, with the knees and stuff.
The Road Dog one. Road Dog took that one from him later.
Mick Foley, when he was Dude Love, took that one as well.
Yeah, that's right. But he used the hands too, so
yeah.
Which Junk Foot Dog did not use.
Ivan Putski beat somebody by the name of Smirnoff by COR, which I realized way later than I should have that COR stood for Count Out Ring. Is that what it stands for?
I think so. Yeah.
Count Out Ring, I think.
Count out the ring. Count out of the because you're not gonna put out of in those little so.
And then he wrote in parentheses, they have yet to invent an adjective which can adequately describe how bad this match was. Torture is the closest.
Jesus
Christ. And then he goes, yes, Jimmy Snuka appeared on the November 13th Poughkeepsie tapes. He still isn't blinking, so he may not be over his troubles. Maybe when your eyes don't blink for so long, they just forget how to.
And now I can't get that image out of my head because Jimmy Snuka would just have the deer in headlights look forever.
All right, this is my favorite one. Actually, you know what? Let's save it for last. I'll go to this one first because I want to save my favorite one for last. You can burn up more calories sipping coffee than Dr. D. David Schultz does when he's in the ring.
Hey, he better know. Stay all the way from Dr. D. That's our boy.
All right, last one. Kerry Von Erich had a final screen test this past week for a lead role as Sylvester Stallone's Russian opponent in the movie Rocky IV. If Kerry gets the part, he will 1, cut his hair, 2, learn to box, and 3, learn Russian. I wouldn't be surprised if he can do the first thing. I have doubts about the second, and am certain he can't accomplish the third. It took him 24 years just to learn English.
Jesus Christ. And that was mean, because I don't know why Kerry deserved that one. Like, there's nothing... He wasn't a good promo guy, but, I mean, you can't say he couldn't speak English.
I think he just saw the avenue for comedy. You got to remember, his brother eventually becomes a comedian, so maybe the young Meltzers, like if someone was to do like a a documentary or like a TV series on the young Meltzers. It's just like Dave and his brother just ripping each other line by line.
Maybe they do that during the family dinners.
Yeah.
But I, you know what? I've known that story since somehow I knew that story since I was a kid, and
Yeah.
it always fascinated me if Kerry Von Erich would have gotten that role. Like it's like,
Well, I talked to somebody about this, and because they said, well, it wouldn't have been as good because Dolph Lundgren was perfect for the role. And I was like, yeah, but we don't know. Kerry could have been good. Like Dolph Lundgren was Swedish. He wasn't Russian. He only what did Drago have like 4 lines the whole movie?
right, yes.
You could have given Kerry those lines. And Kerry, I don't know if he was as tall because Dolph is probably, but Sylvester Stallone's really short, so that's what.
But
made
Kerry
Dolph
was more
giant.
jacked. Than
Yeah,
Dolph
Kerry's
Lundgren.
more jacked. Now the problem may have been, could Kerry even lift his arms to box because he was so huge? He's so big.
They would take care of him in the movie. No, he probably would have unloaded on poor Sly like way more times than Dolph Lundgren did.
Do you believe the story that Sly told Dolph to lay it in, and then Dolph sent him to the hospital because he like punched him in the heart or something? Do you believe that story?
No, I mean, that's Sly. Sly's also a carny, so who knows? I know that he broke his neck in the Expendables trying to. Who hurt him? I think Randy Couture hurt him. Somebody hurt him, but so, and I know he's gotten some punches. They punched him, accidentally during the Rocky movies, because that's gonna happen. But yeah, I don't think he went to the hospital because he had a bad heart or got hit in the heart.
I think I've told you this. I am still of the opinion that The Rock's story of having $7 in his pocket before he turned to wrestling, I'm almost certain that he lifted this story from Sylvester Stallone.
I think so.
Because if you go back, and some of these interviews are out there on the internet, if you search hard enough, you can find these interviews of Stallone talking about the story of Rocky 1. And he has this quote about how, I don't remember how many dollars it was, but it was like, I had $4 in my pocket or something at the time. Because Sylvester Stallone is a worker as well, right? He's working the entire time, and in the whole Rocky buildup, he had to sell butt kits. I mean, maybe he did have to sell butt kits, but then he bought them back and all this stuff. So, he has this thing where he's like, yeah, I had like $3 to my name, and then I made Rocky, and like this is how he's saying it. And Dwayne's $7 to the story of $7 Entertainment is like almost this exact same. And I wonder if Dwayne was just really good at searching the internet for stories back in the day.
Right. But the thing about the Dwayne story, it always speaks badly of Rocky Johnson, because Rocky Johnson is never somebody he could go to. So that tells you how broke he was as well. They were both broke, essentially. Which it's a story, but or his mom, the promoter, like he couldn't go to any of them. But yeah, I know that he had some tough times, but I don't think he literally came down to $7 in his pocket.
What about the story about how he met his wife? What do you think about that?
Heard that one.
Well, the first wife, not his current wife.
Oh yeah,
but
yeah.
He said when he was at Miami, and I think they were at a bar or something, and he met Danny that night, and he stayed talking to her or whatever. But what he was supposed to do, he was supposed to be at an orgy with his football team.
That story took a turn.
I swear to God, that's what he said. I don't know if he would say that today, but back in the day,
his team did have Ray Lewis in it, so that's a possibility.
Yeah, that team was stacked. They had Warren Sapp. Like, he's starting ahead of Warren Sapp at some point before Warren Sapp just laps him.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, let's end with this, because I do want to talk a little bit about heading into 2026. If you were to give WWE, now this is your own grade. It doesn't have to be about business. It just has to be about how entertained you were with both companies. How would you grade WWE and AEW?
I think I would give them both a C. I think that's a good grade for both. Yeah. I think average, 70%. They were still. I mean, they're good. They're still. I'm not gonna give them a D or an F. That's so unfair. because none of them are. First of all, neither company's an F. So if I hear an F from anybody, they're already full of shit.
Yeah.
And same thing with a D. I mean, I thought once Cena decided to turn babyface, I thought his run was decent. I thought he had I thought he had really good matches. I thought all the pay-per-views, even though it's not my style, right? The whole 5-match format and waiting 10 minutes after every match for another match. I don't like that, but the actual work was good. And then AEW, you're always, you know what you're going to get with AEW. You just know what you're going to get, and you're always going to get good to great wrestling. You know, and again, there was some storylines that had me invested this year in AEW, especially in the tail end. I got a kick out of the Young Bucks being poor. I got a kick the Takeshita versus Okada feud. I thought that was
still gonna go probably for the next year too.
They I think somewhere along the line they've lost their way a little bit, but they kind of bring it back. Sometimes I feel like Takeshita is in a different storyline because he doesn't really react to anything. Like we haven't gotten his action. Like he's just kind of there, and then everybody around him is working off of him. But I thought, and one other thing too is that Okada, when it comes to his promos, he's really picked it up. Like you know, that promo he cut on the pay-per-view right before he went out there in the finals. That's probably one of my favorite promos he's ever done. I mean, he doesn't do a lot of promos, but it was a great, and it was in English. You know, it was awesome. You could tell that he's getting better at you know, speaking English as well, which is weird because I thought he was just gonna write it out like what's his name? God damn it, I'm blanking already. From WWE, like Nakamura. Yeah. You know, Nakamura, when he went to WWE, he just stopped improving in everything. He just stopped, right? It's like, this is it. I'm gonna write it out, cash my check on my charisma. I thought that's where Okada was heading because he's also kind of broken down. But no, I mean, this guy has improved his English tremendously. I mean, he's picked it up in the tournament. You know, I thought he had a couple of really good matches. So both of them get a C grade for me. Both companies.
I will say that Daza actually might have a story of where Dwayne The Rock Johnson got his orgy story. Steve McQueen, according to Daza, was going to Sharon Tate's party the night the Manson family struck. However, he hooked up with a girl at a bar and went there and said, "Oh, not exactly, but a very similar story."
It's not an orgy.
That's crazy, though. That is an insane story.
I had heard that story before.
All right. So for me, how do I bridge this? Okay. If it comes to television, I know a lot of people really love Dynamite, and I almost hate watching it because I have to talk about it. And unless you have your pause on your remote control and you can like write all these notes, like I rarely remember anything after that show is done. And which is, I know this is a little blasphemous for some wrestling fans to say, but I still like Monday Night Raw the best because as an overall show, I think it's to my taste from an entertainment perspective and from this, like it's almost like an act. It's like, here's act 1, act 2, and act 3. These are the things I have to remember about this show, and I'm good. Not to some people, they want to see all action, and that's all that matters. So of course they're gonna like Dynamite better. But if AEW was only a pay-per-view promotion and I did not have to watch their television, I think they were like an A-. But because I have to watch their television and I don't really like it, I would drop them down a bit. I might go B-. But WWE to me is the opposite. If I only had to watch Raw, I think I would like the promotion so much more because I was actually disappointed in a lot of the PLEs. I think the PLEs, they are built up very well, and then I have this expectation, and they always come in under my expectation.
Even like the big four.
I thought WrestleMania both nights.
Oh yeah, no, this is horrible. I didn't like it. Not
great. You know, SummerSlam. I think SummerSlam was pretty decent. Survivor Series. I was like, we've seen this before. War Games. The one that I was most disappointed in though was the very first WrestlePalooza because they built up this CM Punk and AJ, and like that was maybe my favorite story of the whole year because AJ comes out and the fans react to her like she's Hulk Hogan in 1984. I was so impressed, and I was like, man. And then she comes in, she does a promo like she never left. I was so impressed with her. And then we had to get to the match, and I was like, oh, the last time AJ wrestled, there was very little expectation for what she had to do in the ring. And she was messing up stuff left and right. And Becky and Seth were like having to do the work of like 2 or 3 people just to do her stuff. Now, the next match that she was in, which was War Games, she was much better in that match, but she had less to do because there's so many people. So, but it's like that. It's like they can still build up that expectation. They can still promote, and get me fired up for stuff. But then the delivery comes underneath. So I would have probably put them at like a C+ and maybe AEW as a B-.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, that's definitely fair. I don't like that. You're right. The WWE, their promoting capabilities are off the. They're awesome at that, but delivering is what they struggle with. You know, once you get with the final product, it's like more times than not you're gonna be a little let down by it.
Okay, where is Chris Jericho in 2026, and how does WWE book him?
He's gonna be in Saudi in 2026 at the end of January. I wonder if they're gonna make him wear the hoodie and all that stuff like they do, because it's like, I don't know. I just don't see how you could hide the guy if you're gonna send him all the way to Saudi. But I don't think, knowing Jericho, I don't think because he has a very high opinion of himself. Let's just put it that way. I don't think he's down with the retirement angle that they offered him. He sees himself as a guy that could still go. He wants to still be in the mix. So I don't know what compromise they're going to come up with there. He's not going to be the guy that's going to be putting over people. I know that much. He's going to be coming with a push, and maybe working with the younger guys, as a baby face. So he's going to be in the mix. I don't think we're going to do the whole retirement gimmick with him just yet. That might be something for 2027. But he'll be in WWE.
You've been watching Chris Jericho's entire career.
Right.
You've read his books, you know a lot about him.
His concerts.
So if you could think like Jericho, is there a specific person on the current WWE roster where you're like, oh, I want to work with that guy, or I can make money with that guy, or I can create a program with that guy that people are going to respond to?
Yes. He's going to want to work with, like, I could see him working with a Carmelo Hayes. Like, I could see him thinking, because Jericho's thing is like he gets the young guys and he creates little stables, and in his mind, him being the leader elevates everyone. So I could see him going into the company and creating a stable with Carmelo Hayes, and so people in the vision. But even though they already have a stable, like I know he would probably want to work with Braun Breaker. He's gonna want to work with those guys. Jericho doesn't want to work with the veterans because he's already done it. He's not gonna come in there to work with Roman Reigns or Seth Rollins. He's done all that, and that's understanding how Jericho thinks.
What about someone like LA Knight, as Fernando suggests?
I mean, I don't see Jericho wanting to, but he'll do it. He'll do it. But I don't see him wanting to do that. I think he wants to get in there with the young guys, because Jericho also has this fascination of like working with everybody from different generations. Because he's one of the guys that work with all the young guys from the '90s, the 2000s, etc. So he has a list. He likes to go over that list of like, oh, I work with so-and-so, and nobody has done it. I work with this guy, and nobody has done that. So he's going to want to go in there and work with the young people for sure. Javon Evans, he probably going to want to work with him. I know he's going to want to work with him. And I think he has that philosophy of like, the younger they are, the more they're going to make me look young, because eventually they're going to carry me to a match, like had been happening in AEW. So I just feel bad for, what's the name of those two guys? The Learning Tree guys. He kind of left them high and dry, bro.
Yeah, Big Bill and Brian. I forget the guy with the hat.
Yeah, and it's like he left them high and dry.
So I don't know anything. My prediction for WrestleMania, because Fernando picked LA Knight for WrestleMania, I'm gonna predict Sami Zayn and Jericho at WrestleMania, because I like your idea, but I'm not sure if Jericho can work at that speed anymore to work with someone like a Javon Evans. He might just look slow as molasses. He might look like Randy Orton, like you were saying, slow as molasses.
No. But I think it's more aligning himself with them, like
in a stable, like
in a stable, like coming in and being their leader, and maybe feuding with it. Yeah, like you're right, like a Sami Zayn,
because I think Sami Zayn, like in a lot of WWE fans' eyes, is kind of like how I look at like an Eddie Kingston or Mark Briscoe in AEW. Like they're right on that edge of, you know what, just give me that title win because I want to celebrate those guys actually winning the big one. And I see Sami Zayn in the same way. Like I think the fans are like, we need, I want to see him win the big one. And I think Jericho sees that as well. And I think Jericho would like to be in that, whatever that is to help Sami Zayn get to that next level because Jericho's been there. And like, if you think about it, I don't think these guys are comparable in their characters or in their wrestling style, but Jericho was also that guy who fans were just like, I just want to see him win the title one time. Like he's my guy. He was a lot younger than Sami Zayn is now, but I think he could see that. So that would be my pick with Jericho and Sami Zayn.
Okay, no, that's a good pick. But yeah, he's gonna be in WWE, which is cool. I mean, I wonder if he keeps the same song. That's another thing. I feel like he's not gonna want. I feel like he's gonna want to use his song, right? Because he gets.
I'm sure they're in the studio right now figuring out what's going to be the song, right?
Yeah, because Break the Walls Down is like knowing Jericho. That's the past. We don't go back there. We always have to go to the future. So. It's gonna be a Fozzy song because he's gonna get more money for that. So
think about how long Judas lasted with that AEW fan base.
Yeah,
but I don't know that he didn't have that moment. Actually, you know what? I'm sure he did have people singing Judas at Wembley. I'm sure there was a lot of people singing it out, but I'm sure he's gonna want to recreate that moment in WWE with a different song.
But here's the reality. Here's the reality, and I'm gonna Dave Meltzer this entire little celebration of Jericho. It doesn't, no matter how many coats of paint you have on him, it's still a 54-year-old dude. It's still a nostalgia act, and he's probably gonna get about a good year run, like 1 year, maybe a year and a half, and then he's gonna go back to like people are gonna be tired of him. It's just he's a nostalgia act, So, I think 2027 we're gonna start looking at maybe winding it down for him. However that looks like.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Okay. Out of Trick, Javon, and Oba, who has the best 2026?
I'm gonna go with Trick Williams. He's got everything they want. He's got the look. He's got the mic skills, which are very important in WWE. Javon is the best worker of the three, as we know. I mean, but he's got to bulk up a little bit for that company with their expectations. He's also a good promo, not a great promo, but a good promo. He connects organically with the audience, which doesn't necessarily
the younger fans too. The younger fans really like him.
Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a push connecting. Or we've seen that throughout the years. Obafemi's still very green, and you could see it in longer matches where he still struggles a little bit. His promo skills are still not up to par. So Obafemi is going to be number 3 in that hole when we get out of 2026, in my opinion. But it's going to be Trick Williams, because Trick Williams coming in with a push. This is the guy. He has been hand chosen to be one of the top guys. Where I feel the other two have to earn it. So Trick Williams is going to be very protected for sure.
On Raw, the Raw from Monday, all 3 guys were on Raw, but just in different ways. So Trick was talking to Adam Pearce, and he was Hollywood Trick, and make sure you have my number in your my number in your phone and all that stuff. So he's doing that.
He's doing the old MVP gimmick.
And then Javon was in the back with some of the other guys, and then Obafemi had his own video. So, I don't know if there's anything to any of that, like why they chose those 3 ways to show all those guys, but you can tell that those guys are going to be on television, in the very near future, or part of their plans in the very near future, which to me, maybe Javon is the one that kind of goes back and forth a little bit, but you know, I kind of hope that NXT is in their rear view because I don't like that show. I don't, you know, I think that show can be a waste sometimes. So I just want to see them focused on the main roster.
No, yeah, I think they're already in the main. I think those three guys are already in the main roster. I think, well, Obafemi is getting vignettes, so he's in. Like, they're not gonna show vignettes. The other two are doing the gimmicks of, like, you know, who could afford my services, you know, SmackDown or Raw, which is fine. They've done it before. But I do feel that Javon Evans still has, believe it or not, he still has that stigma of, like, oh, he's a high flyer, and that's the term they would use, a high flyer, which hasn't been used in years. And so we can't really go all the way with him. You know, he doesn't know how to tell a story in the ring. We have to ground him a little bit. So that's gonna be his barrier. And Trick Williams is gonna get all, you know, he's gonna get all the opportunities. Even though he, out of all three, I don't want to say he's the weaker when it comes to wrestling because Oba is relatively new, but he's closer to Oba than he is to Javon Evans as far as work rate. So this is what I'm trying to say. Trick Williams is gonna have to prove to them that he's not a main event guy. Mm-hmm. Whereas the other two are going to have to prove to them that they deserve a main event shot. So that's where we're at with those three candidates.
I think I'm with you. All right. Does Gunther truly get over as one of the top 2 or 3 stars in WWE in 2026?
I think so. I think he's already there. I think he you know, the heat that he's getting for this, which is weird, but whatever. And also, look, if Lesnar decides to do business with him and he puts him over the right way, he's in the stratosphere at that point. I mean, that would be amazing to see that. But I don't know if Brock is the type of guy to do that unless he respects you, which I don't know how he feels about Gunther. But then again, and I know that this has been the whole criticism online. Gunther's not a young guy. Like, why, you know? And then what is the end game with Gunther? Who does he eventually put? Trick Williams? I mean, who does he eventually give it to? One of the ones that I want to see, I would rather save Lesnar for Obafemi. I would rather see that match and have Lesnar put Obafemi over clean and get this guy going. That's a younger guy, you know. So, but we'll see. But it is a headline match if they do it at WrestleMania, or if they want to do the retirement angle with Gunther, they could wait for Minneapolis at SummerSlam.
I think they have great plans for Gunther. But the top of that card, there's so many sharks at the top of that card. If Gunther's going to be top 2 or 3 in the entire company in 2026, one of these guys has to drop. CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, and I guess I would put Drew up there right now, but Drew's replaceable. Gunther could replace Drew.
Ever, I don't think.
Yeah. No, you're right. There's no John Cena, so there's a spot. So can he get to the Cody, Punk?
And remember, we got Jericho coming in now.
And Roman and Jericho. And now they're trying to ascend Braun Breaker. So there's a lot of moving pieces. Like, I think Gunther is the most dependable pro wrestler that they have for sure. But can he be bigger than he is now and take advantage of the John Cena win? I'm not so sure. I think they have hopes, but I don't know if I look at Triple H, does Triple H truly believe Gunther is the biggest star in the company? I don't see it. I'm not so sure. So it's more what I think Triple H sees versus what I see, because I think Gunther's awesome. But, you know, he wouldn't be the guy that you would choose to be the face of your company if you were picking out of everyone in the company today.
No, I think he's a guy that they want to kind of depend on to put somebody over huge. So you build him up to eventually pass him over to somebody else. I think that's the point of building up Gunther.
All right, let's move over. I got 2 questions about AEW, and we'll get out of here. Who do you think? Okay, what do you think of AEW heading into 2026? This Hangman story of avenging the Death Riders is over. He's not even the champion anymore. MJF is the champion again. Jon Moxley turned babyface seemingly in the most ludicrous babyface turn in the history of wrestling, even though it worked. Yeah, but like, what are the stories left to tell for AEW in 2026?
I think AEW, first of all, it's gonna be the MJF show again because he's not. I don't see him getting a reign less than 12 months. I mean, MJF last time he got it was about a year and a couple months. The last reign, so we're gonna see a lot of MJF setting up contenders for MJF over and over, which is cool because they have the guys. I think for Revolution, which I'll be at live, we're probably gonna see some sort of rematch with Hangman and MJF, which is weird because they wrestled at last year's Revolution. That's his first feud, right? Because MJF didn't get pinned, so he deserves, he's gonna be the top contender unless they go back and somehow have Samoa Joe get deserve a rematch or whatever. But I don't think so, because he's the one that got pinned. So it's like he lost the belt. So I think we're gonna see that. I think we're gonna see John Moxley's gonna feud with the Death Riders for a while, But it's interesting to me. There's a question that I have. That means that there's a slot open for a new leader of the Death Riders if they want to continue that. Kind of like how they do with the,
Pac?
No, not Pac. Pac doesn't have the mic skills, and he's hardly ever there. The guy comes and goes, man. He wasn't even there at the pay-per-view, and he's not hurt. It was just the other 3 or 4. Because I don't even know Daniel Garcia. He's become such a nothing. He's worse off being the Death Riders than he was when he was a nobody as a babyface.
Yeah,
because now he's just invisible. At least before he was boring and somewhat invisible.
At least he had a dance when he was a babyface.
There you go. So so I think they could do kind of like the Judgment Day gimmick where they keep on kind of cycling in and out like leaders of the pack. And in this situation, there's an opening for that. And I do wonder who's going to take it. I feel like I don't know. I wonder if they want to keep that shooter dynamic too, because I feel like Ricochet would be great, but he would take the group in another direction.
So too wacky.
Right. So, but so that's interesting to keep. I'm excited for that. Obviously, the Takeshita and Okada thing will continue, and I hope it gets blown off in a real match because I was very disappointed with their match at the pay-per-view.
That finish was awful.
Yeah, but I do like there's some subtleties that I've been enjoying about AEW, and I hope they continue this. I'll go through a couple of them real quick. The first one is Samoa Joe's character and how he's realized that he's old now and he needs the protection, right? But again, what I love about that is that they never tell you that. You're supposed to understand through his body language, to his promos. He's starting to show that he's more of a coward, but the reason that he's more cowardly is because Father Time finally caught up to him. He can't be that powerful Samoa Joe anymore. I love that. I love that stuff about wrestling when it's done right. And then another thing is the implosion of the Don Callis family, because I do like that subtlety of like Okada taking the screwdriver away from Kyle Fletcher, and then when he needed it, it wasn't there. And I love the fact how they never harped on that. You saw it. And it happened, and it's just like step one in other things happening with the Don Callis family that's gonna eventually, lead to the implosion, which is not just with Okada and Takeshita, it's gonna be with a lot of different members. So I like that. I love that.
Kyle Fletcher will never not watch the monitor before his match again.
Well, that's always a plot hole with wrestling, right? So I think they're gonna be in the same position they've been in. But that's not a bad thing, it's just you're getting your weekly dose of wrestling, and yeah, we'll see what happens. Trying to think if they have any young guys up on the rise, and I don't think they do, right?
There's one guy, and we'll talk about him right now because this is my next question. The one guy that I'm thinking of is obviously Kyle Fletcher. He's the one that.
Yeah, I love that guy, man. I see great, but you know what? I see he and I'm going to say this right now. He's going to be a star in the WWE one day.
Well, that's what a lot of people said, but I think he just re-upped with AEW recently. So,
but he's tailor-made for the WWE though. And he's tall, he's jacked, and he's not what they would consider like a high flyer. I see Paul Levesque seeing money with that guy. Like he's 26 years old or something like that.
Yeah,
and it's like I see him like as a Randy Orton type. Where you learn how to work, how to do things, at the right time. I see big money with him in the WWE. But you're right. He is the future of AEW right now.
Okay. The goal, I'm sure, is for Will Ospreay to be back in AEW by All In, because that is going to be at Wembley Stadium. It would be the big selling point. They got to sell a ton of tickets for that show. But the reality is this man is coming off of neck surgery, and that time isn't necessarily predictable. He may miss that show. It could be close, but he may have to miss that show, and then we have to wait for Wembley another 2 years for him to finally win that world title at Wembley. So if Will Ospreay is not ready by All In 2026, what is your main event to your biggest show of the year for AEW?
I feel like Mox has weaseled his way as a babyface into the top of the main event scene again, so he's fresh. So I feel like if you do this right, you could go with Mox and MJF if you build it up to August, you know? Because I was surprised how over Mox is all of a sudden. Like, I really am. And he
again, the most ludicrous babyface turn maybe in the history of wrestling, and yet he did it perfectly. I still, it's weird to me that this man was trying to kill people and now he's like getting cheered. But yeah.
No, but I also feel that it's booking 101. You give him the Steve Austin gimmick to 2026, and you have MJF continually putting barriers in front of him. MJF could be for a little short time. MJF could take over the Death Riders, and he could be their new leader just for the purpose of this angle, right? He gets into their head. He gets them to turn on Moxley, and then you build it up that way, So you essentially turn MJF and the Death Riders into Vince McMahon and his crew back in 98, 99. And I think that would be kind of cool too, because I mean, the way Mox could sell it is like heartbreaking, right? I mean, his crew, his family turned on him, and now he's got to rise up, the whole redemption story, and culminate it at All In, like you said. But it's corny by Moxley though, because he really shouldn't be in that spot. But I'm just saying that's how it worked out, and so let him have another year of being a main event guy. He's a babyface, so it's different.
There's some Moxley detractors for sure, but I kind of saw it like you in that he might just be like one of the smartest guys in the company.
I think he is. I think he's showing us that he is. Yeah.
So that's how I read it as well. He was like, he's just reading the tea leaves and was like, this is thing. This is the time, but it worked. Okay, here's my idea, and I think they would have to make this decision probably by the spring, so maybe after Revolution. Obviously, if Will's ready, it's MJF and Will, and you put the title on Will. That's if he's ready. If he's not ready, they may have to figure that out sooner than later. And here's what I do. I would do, and Daza is smelling what I'm cooking here. I would have Kyle Fletcher turned babyface by the Callis family, and I would have him resolve whatever the feud is in one of the summer pay-per-views before All In. And then I would have Will Ospreay there giving Kyle Fletcher his approval or his backing to go out there and win the world title and beat MJF as a babyface. That would be my creative for All In if no Will Ospreay is ready. And look, this is me because I like babyfaces. Tony Khan seemingly can't build a babyface to save his life because
that's hard. That's hard for any company.
It is hard. He always goes back to the heels, right? Like Hangman. We saw this story. And I was like, yes, Hangman. Mox and Hangman had such a great match, and we had this great story. And then a couple months down the line, and Hangman, his title's already off this dude. And I get it. It's easier to book your stories around having a heel champion if you're Tony Khan, the way that he's going to be a little bit leaning more towards NWA, the way that they use Ric Flair than Hulk Hogan was used by WWF. So, but I always look towards building that babyface, and you have Fletcher, and then you can do whatever you want with Fletcher and Ospreay down the line. And, maybe you do wait another 2 years and then you do that match. I don't know post next year's All In, but I would love to see them lean into Fletcher, because I think ultimately, as good of a heel as he is, I think he's going to be an insane baby face when the time is right. So that's what I would do.
Yeah, he just gotta get off that juice, man. Because that guy, he's what's AEW has what's going on with AEW? That's a whole nother story, man. They're all Swerve and Pac and Kyle Fletcher. They all seem like they have the same doctor. I don't know. Do they? I'm just asking.
I always think about this because, we lived through this experience of what steroid damage can do to you. But at the same time, I think we are led to believe that the abuse of some of the other drugs are much less today. But then we watch and see these guys killing themselves in the ring. So you would go like, how are they dealing with their bodies being beat up all the time? So much so that Tony can't book Dynamite matches until like the last minute because he doesn't know who's going to be available. So yeah, I worry about that stuff too. It is such a vanity business still, even if they tell us that in today's day and age, it's not even about size anymore. Yet everybody still wants to get bigger. So I don't know. That's
but it's happening a lot in
hypocrisy
AEW
of wrestling, I guess.
Maybe we noticed a lot in AEW. Well, maybe because everybody's smaller in AEW, so that bulk is more noticeable. But I'm sure it's happening in WWE too. I mean,
Austin Theory was just on television, and I'm not saying Austin Theory is on steroids, but that dude was fit and cut and jacked.
But he's always been like that, though. Kind of. He was more than usual.
Yeah. Well, this is awesome. I'm glad we were able to make the time on New Year's Eve, and shout out to everyone who was hanging out with us. But last question, and we'll get out of here because you're a movie guy. What movie are you looking most forward to in 2026?
This is gonna sound like such a cop out because it's such a popcorn movie, but Avengers Doomsday.
Wow, I thought you were gonna say The Odyssey.
That's second. I saw the 6-minute preview though. It was awesome. But no, I mean, I'm always gonna go back to the MCU, man. They got me, bro. They got me, and I never. I don't like that because there's this idea that I'm like a comic book guy. And I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, me neither.
But I appreciate what Kevin Feige did with the MCU and the concept going all the way. It ended up biting him in the ass, but that's a conversation for another time. But I think what he started and how many egos he had to appease and work with to get to this point, it's pretty damn fascinating to me. And then now with all these teasers that are coming out, Disney has an interesting strategy. I don't know if you know about this. They're leaking these trailers, right? They're leaking them. So you're seeing them in that phone. They're very blurry, but now they're also working with people on YouTube, people that have big followings, and having them have their reaction to leaked trailers.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting strategy.
So I saw the Captain America one, and I saw the Thor one in just recently being at the movies. Do you think that this is a bit of WCW 96? Like, we're leaning so heavy on the guys that we supposedly moved away from because that's the only way that we think we can do these movies.
Well, the problem is that Phase 4 and 5 didn't get over. I mean, not whatsoever. And it's not all their fault. They made a lot of mistakes along the way.
It was the new generation of the WWF.
Right. Right. Well, Kevin Feige has gone on record saying that all he was doing was following orders from who was the one that was the head of HBO before what's his name came back. I forget his name, but he had a directive.
You're talking about Bob Chapek. Yeah,
Bob Chapek told Kevin Feige that he has a directive to produce as much content as possible because we're gonna launch this app, and so Kevin Feige was like, we just had to produce content. Like that's all we could.
That does make a lot of sense.
And so
we remember those days of Disney Plus.
Right, and he regrets it now because like that did a lot of damage to the brand, and so we couldn't get. You start losing focus, and I couldn't manage all these different projects going at the same time. So now they're bringing it back to where they're only releasing 2 films a year now. So, but yeah, no, and then you missed the X-Men. The latest one is the X-Men one.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah, well, it's in the leaked stage right now. It'll be in the theaters next week. and that was awesome, man. I got caught up in that one. So that's that. I'm looking forward to that. That's a year away. That's next December. The Odyssey is looking like it's gonna be something like a big event.
You
Dune
know,
3
Avengers and Dune 3 drop on the same day, I think.
Yeah, I have a feeling one of them's gonna budge because they're going after the same audience.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder why that happened. Is that like
I don't know
WB like throwing down or like I don't know because
somebody
Disney
had the date first, right? Somebody
Disney
had the date first, and all right. Not that we need to keep talking about Marvel, but what do you think about the Fantastic Four?
I was a little underwhelmed by it. It
Yeah.
was it was just there. I mean,
It didn't seem big enough to me.
it didn't seem big enough. It seemed very enclosed in its own little bubble, which I guess was the point in a lot of ways. But it just I don't know. And then it wasn't very long. It was like an hour. So to me, these movies need at least 2 hours to especially when you're bringing back such a big franchise like the Fantastic Four. It seemed to me that this world had already existed, and we just got thrown right in the middle of it. Like I feel like this is a part 2. Like what happened to part 1? Like we're missing so much information, and we just got thrown into this world while it was already in motion. So I was a little under. It wasn't a bad movie whatsoever, but I was a little underwhelmed.
And then when is Spidey coming out in 2026 as well?
Yeah, that's another big one. That's in July.
Okay, yeah, that'll be a big one.
Project Hail Mary's one that a lot of people are waiting for as well.
Is that in space? Is that the space one?
That's a space one, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about Mandalorian?
I mean, that's not my thing anymore, man. I mean, it's gonna make it's just Star Wars has their equity is down the drain.
Well, if Kathleen Kennedy's on her way out, hopefully that means good things.
Yeah, so I mean, there's no buzz for it, and the trailers are out. I mean, there's no excitement for it. And think about it, Grogu and the Mandalorian were so over like 3 years ago, and it's like now it's like nobody really talks about them.
Yeah, this movie feels like it's about 3 years late.
Yeah, that's just talking about the Madden movie with Nicolas Cage.
Oh my gosh, that looks so terrible.
But I think that's going right to Prime. It's not going to be a theatrical.
Okay.
Yeah, you saw the trailer?
I'm reading no, I didn't see the trailer, but I've seen all of the shots of what Nick Cage looks like. And I'm actually reading a book on John Madden and Pat Summerall right now because there's a book about them as broadcasters.
Is that who Christian Bale's going to play? Pat Summerall?
No, he's playing Al Davis.
Oh, that's
Raiders
right.
Coach.
That's right.
Yeah. So the Raiders coach and then owner. But all right, I had to hit you up about that. Just I was going to ask you anyways in text, so I figured might as well ask you on the air. All right, that is it from here. I want to thank Draven for hanging out. Thanks everybody who are in the chat. It is a great catching up with Dazza, who my famous Dazza story is he and I tied on Kiss miniature golf back in the day of the early convention, F4W convention days. Oh yeah, Wuthering Heights too. I've seen lots of posters about that one.
Yeah. That's
okay, so for Draven, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.